Pathologic and Pathologic 2 are games that make me feel like absolute shit. Completely terrible. They make me feel stressed out, angry, and confused literally the entire time that I'm playing them. They're also two of my favorite games of all time, and I'm incredibly lucky that they came into my life at the time that they did. Today I'm going to be talking about my experiences with Pathologic 1 and 2, I'm going to explain why I love them, and talk about what these games say about the medium. I'll try to keep spoilers to a minimum with this one, but if you're the type of person that really likes going into games fully blind, give Pathologic 2 a shot and then come back. For the rest of you, please take your seats as the play is about to begin. Pathologic is a very weird, very Russian survival horror RPG from 2005. In it, you play as one of three people tasked with saving a strange town from the plague. I mean, not the plague like the historical one. This one's got a lot more skulls. I mean, it's still got the rats, so I guess they're sort of similar. Jesus Christ! You can play as the Haruspex, a surgeon, the Bachelor, a Redditor, or the other one. No spoilers. Whichever one you choose, the events of the other characters' arcs happen at the same time. So while you're playing as the Bachelor, the Haruspex as an NPC is off doing his thing, and vice versa. All characters must manage their hunger, exhaustion, health, and infection levels throughout the playthrough, and in every scenario, this is a difficult thing to stay on top of. Food becomes expensive quickly. Sleeping wastes time. The plague is everywhere. Jesus Christ! And there are no shortage of people who want you dead. You quickly learn that this game is an exercise in scarcity, that you will never have everything that you need, and in order to even get enough of some things, you're going to have to play carefully. You avoid fights, you steal from shelters, you make morally wrong choices because it means you'll survive to the next day and get another shot at curing the sandpest. In this way, every moment is tense. You have to consider how best to accomplish your tasks, and it's not as easy as press blue button to do good thing and red to do bad thing. Your choices, in dialogue or in gameplay, have precise material consequences for your character as well as all the other characters in the story. The good news is, you have plenty of time to consider these choices because a solid 80% of your time will be spent walking from place to place to place to place between all the people you have to talk to throughout your day. I remember seeing someone online, maybe on Reddit or something, I don't know, compare Pathologic to Morrowind. I think that it's a pretty brilliant observation. You're thrust into a world completely alien to you, left to sort out the situation yourself as you walk dreadfully slowly from place to place to place. All the while, the early 2000s render distance makes every single environment look coated in a thick fog. Also, the combat in both games is janky as hell, so there's that too. The difference is that while Morrowind gives you giddy discovery and hero fantasy, Pathologic gives you disempowerment, stress, and overwhelming dread. Every aspect of the game is created to be as unwelcoming as possible, down to the manner in which the characters speak.
You think escaping your fate is just as simple as escaping your purpose? Not so. You will see for yourself.
Icepick Lodge didn't fail at creating an enjoyable game. They succeeded at making an unenjoyable one. Unfortunately, that didn't count for much in the eyes of most. Pathologic was never a massive hit, partially due to translation issues, partially because, as I've made clear, playing it isn't fun. But over the years, it managed to gain a small but dedicated fan base. More than a dozen years later in 2019, the sort of sequel, sort of remake Pathologic 2 released. The gameplay and graphics have been tightened up, it's spookier than before, and it still retains all the aspects that made the first game what it is. You can only play as the Haruspex as of the release of this video, but if you're going to try these games, you should start with 2. It sounds odd to start with the sequel, but it's what I did, and here I am. Quick note before we move on, from here on out, when I say Pathologic, I want you to assume I'm talking about the series, not the game. Pathologic sounded weird, and I would just be tedious to say Pathologic 1 and 2 every time I wanted to say it. I don't know, just humor me. Moving on. As I've stated and restated many times before, these games are not fun. These games were designed to make you feel like trash, but I still love them. When Death Stranding released in November 2019, it had a very mixed reception. Similar to Pathologic and Death Stranding, the primary gameplay loop is walking to an NPC, giving them what they want, and repeating that task until you save the day. Also like Pathologic, Death Stranding goes out of its way to make this traversal as difficult and time-consuming as possible. The depth of Death Stranding is only understood from the subtext. The meaning of the story is not discovered exclusively through its dialogue and cutscenes, but also from the meta-narrative that the Kojima Strand-type game formula gives us through its use of online connectivity. Pathologic is similar. Its meaning is only fully understood once the player realizes that the suffering they endure is part of the point of the whole work. Still, a lot of people don't have the patience for this type of experience. A majority of gamers would likely agree with the idea that a game is good if it's fun, and that's that. This is a big cause of Pathologic's lukewarm commercial reception, as well as the pool of negative reviews Death Stranding is carrying on its back. Get it? You get it? On its back. To me, this question of do games have to be fun makes me think of paintings. The simplest way to understand this comparison is to look at the rough trends in popular artwork from medieval and Renaissance times to the end of the 20th century. In the times of kings, queens, and the Ninja Turtles, art was made specifically for the rich or for the church, often both. These early paintings focused primarily on religious symbolism or humanistic greatness, or just to flex. These paintings were in large part focused on depictions of the real, of people or of gods doing their thing, eating grapes, Basically, the people who purchased these paintings had a particular standard for what was beautiful in art. In this time, what was good art was art that was traditionally beautiful, not meaningful. Beautiful women, beautiful skylines, you know what I mean. This tradition carried on for many centuries, but flash forward to the 20th century, and you see more experimental pieces. Artists like Picasso, Pollock, you see postmodernism, cubism, abstract expressionism, all sorts of crazy art that people even now hesitate to call beautiful. When I think of what Pathologic is to games, I think of what Guernica is to art. It pushed the envelope, it's dark, it's gritty, and is it beautiful? Is Pathologic fun? I guess it depends on how you want to define those words, but traditionally I'd say no. However, they both carry immense meaning and emotion. That, to me, is the mark of quality, in art and in games. If you disagree, that's fine. I still believe that video games are somewhere in between Da Vinci and Picasso, and true experiments with the form are only starting to pick up now. To me, the Venn diagram between fun games and good games is not a circle. There are, of course, games that are both, and I'd argue games that are fun but not good. You can see an example for that, like terrible early access games on Steam that are hilarious to laugh at. And there are also games like Pathologic that, while likely not fun for a majority of players, are still fantastic. Those games need more recognition. Pathologic needs more recognition, especially with what's going on at the time of this video's release. At the beginning of this video, I mentioned that these games came into my life at a lucky time. To clarify, the times aren't lucky, everything's going to hell, but the fact that they came in at such a terrible time was the lucky part. Of course, what I'm talking about is the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. At the time of me writing this, in early May 2020, everything is on lockdown. People are dying on a scale I haven't ever experienced in my lifetime. Economies are falling apart, the people I love are at risk, and every plan I had for my personal life is sort of being put on hold. For some background on myself, right now I'm 17, which means that for the last few months, my life has been occupied with questions of the future. What am I going to do after high school? Where am I going to work? What will I major in? Which of my friends are moving away? All the things everyone my age has to think about. Because of the ongoing pandemic, all these plans have been thrown to the wind. I don't get a graduation ceremony. I've effectively graduated 3 months before I'd expected to. For the first time in my life, I have no idea what's next for me. And that's absolutely petrifying. In a fantastic video by YouTuber and fellow Calgarian Dan Olson of the channel Folding Ideas, Dan discusses how watching the film Contagion allowed him to experience all of the emotions that the pandemic was making him feel in a safe, controlled environment. Dan discusses how simulation of tragedy during real tragedy can create a sort of catharsis. In his words,
I am scared and anxious and uncertain, and so I will make myself more scared and more anxious and more uncertain because it's still fiction. It's still safe. It still has an end. It is bounded.
This feeling is exactly what makes playing Pathologic so important to me at this time. I can take my worry about the state of the world and suddenly it's not my mom I'm scared for, it's Murky, the little girl living in the train car. I don't distract myself or temporarily forget about my troubles because I find that a lot easier said than done. Rather, I fictionalize them. Playing Pathologic allows me to live out the stress associated with current events in a world that I have agency over. I'm a doctor, not just some kid that works in a grocery store part-time. I can help, I can save, I can cure. God damn it, it's hard, but if I do it and I can live through the suffering, it's possible. It's a hopeful experience at the end of it all and one that's touched me on a level few games have managed to before it. I hope by now you've started to understand why these games are still worth playing, even though few people call them fun. Artistically, Icepick Lodge has made tremendous experiments with the form, and they're one of the developers at the front of the pack in terms of pushing games forward as an artistic medium. Go buy Pathologic 2. There's a strong possibility that there will literally never be a better time in your lifetime to play this game. It's helped me a lot with what's going on right now, and I hope it's doing the same for you guys. If you're tight for cash, just go for a walk and listen to the soundtrack. It's close enough to the real deal anyway. Thanks for watching my video. Bye. Also, in the description of this video, I've linked a few brilliant Pathologic essays if you want more of those, including a video that came out the day I was writing this about literally the same thing I talked about with the coronavirus, even down to the Dan Olsen reference. I didn't copy his video, I swear, but his video is also awesome, so it's down there if you want more in-depth analysis on that topic. Anyway, that's all I got. Thanks a ton. Like and subscribe. Mwah.